I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And we're a Gay
and His Enby.
Episode 18. We are full-grown adults now as a podcast.
We can vote.
Yay. Please vote. No, we won't get political on here. But no, it's another great episode of Gay His Enby coming your way. We have a lot of great things that we are about to talk about. And thank you so much for listening wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere. Tell your friends, let them know that there is a Gay and an Enby talking about all things on television. They need to hear what we got to say. So we thank you guys for listening to us and really supporting us as this sort of young stage of ourselves as a podcast. And it's been fun. What do we have on the docket this episode?
So today we'll be covering, we'll be talking about Survivor, continuing to talk about what's happening there. Yay, we are at the merge.
Yay.
So excited. It feels so early because it's only episode 6, but we will get to that later because first, as about half of our episodes do, I really shoehorned myself early on into starting.
You're very pigeonholed in terms of like what you can say now.
But first, we have Drag Race.
And this is the big final episode before we get to the finale, and we crown a winner.
And reunion and all of that.
And all that stuff, of what they had already filmed, basically. So we come back in from the workroom as Lucy has left. And Lux is kind of feeling herself, obviously, for sending Lucy home, and says that, when you play a dirty game, sometimes you get dirty results. And I think her and Mistress can really strut in many ways with this, of like, they talk about, that they kind of agree that, at the very least, at least Lucy and Untucked was finally honest about playing the game and being like, look, I wanted to give you the worst person for the makeover challenge, and because I didn't like you, be honest about it. It's all good. But no, I'm really excited for the reunion next week because based off of everything that's been going on, it's a lot. So we go into the workroom the next day and we get straight into the Maxi Challenge. RuPaul telling them the Maxi Challenge, which is the music video for Blame It on the Edit, the remix. And she also drops the bomb on them that only 3 of them will go to the finale.
Dun, dun, dun.
Mm-hmm. They really were emphasizing this a lot throughout the episode. And like I don't know why Drag Race does this. I'm sorry. Not to get too far ahead, but it's just like, I think we talked in the past about like them sort of like manufacturing moments and manufacturing like swerves, and like it really doesn't need to be done at the end of the day. I don't see the point of it. I especially when the audience is pretty smart to what's happening.
Oh, we'll talk about it when it comes to the judging deliberation.
Yeah. So they are writing down their lyrics and stuff like that for the video, for their rap portion. Mistress is really excited about it because the song being Blame It on the Edit, that's a really shady song inherently, so it can play to her strengths and sort of the stuff she talks about. And then Lux talks about, the fact that she writes music all the time. And I mean, like we saw in the talent show, she, had her own song in regards to that. And so she has the skills for it.
Why these girls wouldn't walk in here with several sets of lyrics already written?
Oh, I got to imagine. I would hope so.
I mean, at least Lux was not extremely honest about it, but like she didn't walk in and go, well, I've got these lyrics already done. No, she was like, well, I'm done writing lyrics. I'm going to take a nap.
Very Tyra Sanchez.
But look, when you can produce those results, you can take a nap.
Preserve your energy. It's fine. It's not like they were going to like do anything in between I didn't have a problem with it. So then we get the Tic Tac lunches. They were making a point to call them Tic Tac Chit Chats. Like Ru kept saying that over and over again, and I was like, "Is that what we're modeling it after? Is that the new phrase for that?" Which
I think they're calling it that because they've gotten blowback from it being like if it's a Tic Tac lunch, then it's like it's,
But it's
promoting
like the whole eating
eating
disorder sort of vibe.
disorders and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't feel like the TikTok chat talk or whatever it is, or Tic
Tic
Tac.
Tac chit chat.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever.
They just wanted alliteration, I feel. Like,
Well, they changed it to that because, if you're just having a little talk, you might need a
Tic
Tic
Tac?
Tac.
Because we have bowls of Tic Tacs. I wasn't it a couple seasons ago they were doing they were saying like we're doing an episode of I guess the podcast doesn't exist anymore, so they can't really
Yeah.
do that. So that's but again, they were doing episodes of the podcast that never actually aired as episodes. Like,
Did they not? I never listened to
I
their
did-
podcast. So.
I never got into What's the Tea. That's there's a few episodes here and there, but it's but we start with Sasha and this was really good seeing like sort of Sasha's more in-depth like story. She talked about sort of like her time in Orlando and how that kind of built up sort of her reputation in the drag community, and like that she was working 5 nights a week, 3 shows a night essentially. And like it was nice to see Rue and her kind of bond over like the queens that they both sort of, and the bars that they sort of both went to. Like that's always a cool moment of like
it just re-solidifies the theory that Sasha Colby is there to audition
Overtake
to
her.
take over.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong on that. Like I think she makes the most logical sense in terms of that.
But there's an argument for Lux too, because Lux is a young RuPaul.
Yeah.
And we've said that before on this pod. Like it's remarkable how much she resembles in her fashion and the way that she holds herself, and everything is so reminiscent of younger Rue.
Yeah.
So like Lux would, like, she's not there yet, but give her a few years and she could be at the place to do something like this.
I can see that.
Or even if it's like Sasha takes over for the next 10 years and then Lux takes over after that, because 10 years ago you couldn't have told me I had this show.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And then Sasha kind of gets more into sort of her family dynamic and about her mom sort of never showing her love, and I think Sasha's talked sort of briefly about sort of her mom having mental health issues as well, and sort of like obviously like the talent show that she did was like in tribute to her essentially, and her,
Right.
And like I mean, it was also really sad hearing about, she talked about how her father basically committed suicide when he was 80, which like we were like, you were saying even like something about that is also really like jarring.
It's jarring that like he wasn't, from what she was saying, it's not like he had a like terminal disease or something that was like going to be a specific or like a like horrible death or something. So I can understand that you should be able to choose you should have dignity in death. And if you have an awful disease killing you, you should be able to say, no, screw you. I'm going out on my terms. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't seem to be the case here. Like, maybe it's crass, but as someone that has had depression, still struggles with it, I don't understand at that point. It's like at 80, you don't have much left anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're going to live to 140. Like, I just don't see the point at that point.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can't remember if she went into like specific detail about the reasoning, but she did kind of like talk about the sort of bright side in certain ways of that, the fact that after he died, she basically found out that he had left pretty much everything to her, like in terms of even like land and like so like, and she took that as sort of validation in terms of like because of her journey and not knowing sort of the uncertainty in terms of like how her parents felt, and at least knowing that she feels that you know, that was proof that
Right.
her father, supported
Supported
her.
her, yeah.
Yeah. So that was great to see. And then we get to Anitra, and Anitra, they go into sort of her like being like sort of somewhat soft spoken at times, and she talks about it likely from growing up Mormon and sort of having that sort of instilled in her, which I understand. Like I didn't grow up Mormon, but like I can all like I struggled with that a lot in terms of speaking up in certain things to not like be as small as possible in an attempt to like not cause issue. And I
Yeah.
think that it's a real thing that some people have to overcome. And I love Michelle making the point of also like pointing out how great that Anitra Marsha lip sync was, and she goes as far as to say that that was her favorite lip sync of all time, which like
I mean, it's definitely up there for me.
yeah, you could tell Anitra was shook by that, and like
Yeah.
and she talks sort of about her performance style and like her love for ballroom and how sort of it was a sort of escape for her and sort of an expression in many ways, and like learning the moves and getting the vibe and the energy down, which I think she does so well. And we talked past weeks about like sort of that like people in the ballroom community, and
Mm-hmm.
which like and yes, going through it in terms of actually like becoming part of a house and going through that element of it is one thing, obviously, and you're going to learn certain things beyond what you would get from just vibes. But I feel like she has a love for it that's really commendable, and I
Yeah.
think still a respect for it.
And I just feel like there is such a entitlement in saying that somebody has to live in a certain area to have access to a vast portion of queer culture.
Sure.
Ballroom is it belongs to the queer community. I mean, mostly belongs to queer people of color. Um, but you can argue that it is a queer art form. And in order to say that you have to live in a city that has a ballroom culture to be allowed to participate and to be allowed to
Yeah.
take part in that culture when it should belong to all of us, I feel like is
And
quite rude.
I do think like it's become a little more expansive. Like I think we're seeing, at least now in the age where it's grown in certain ways and it's become less underground. You're having balls popping up in smaller areas, like which is good to see.
Not balls popping out in
That didn't come
smaller
out.
areas.
Nope. Nope, didn't mean like that. But no, I think like there is you could tell there's an appreciation from her. So I think it was good to sort of hear her talk more about that.
Yeah.
Mistress is next, and then she talks about sort of her open-mindedness, or not open-mindedness, very different. The ability for her to kind of speak her mind and like sort of unapologetically.
Oh, so her mind is open for others to see.
Yes, there we go. That's a good way to put it. And talks about the issues with Lucy and is very open of just with RuPaul of just like I thought Lucy would say things that I had also said, but like behind people's back in a way where it's like I would get the blowback. And
She would wait and say it off camera.
Yeah,
and she knew what she was doing. She was self-editing and self-producing so that she wouldn't get the blowback in the public. And you talk to any member of the cast and they have that same opinion of Lucy.
Yeah, for the most part.
And so I have no problem calling that out. Like that is weaponizing your whiteness and weaponizing your privilege, and we can't put up with that in 2023 when the drag community is already under attack. Absolutely not. We're not putting up with that bullshit.
Yeah, and I think like it was good to see that Rue and Michelle kind of didn't take it as a moment of like I could see in past seasons like putting the shady music over the top and be like, oh, Mistress is talking too much shit or whatever. But like I liked what they said of just like you're honest and like your attitude is really refreshing in terms of like people can take it or leave it, and like it's not a an attack on that you're dishing out if people can like I think hopefully Mistress, I think I have a hope that Mistress will sort of like create this bigger space for queens to sort of be their full selves on this show more than it was in past seasons.
Yeah.
And I think Diabetes helped a lot with that last season, but I think Mistress is continuing that, and I think
that it's important to point out that the conflict that she had with Malaysia
mhm,
and them coming to a place of understanding of each other, because it, like I said in earlier episodes of this podcast, it is easy to be put off by someone like Mistress,
mhm,
but it's also easy it's also not hard to just talk to somebody and go, hey, I don't appreciate that.
yeah,
And Mistress respected that from Malaysia. And they got to a place where they are friends now. They are actually really close. They are twin mothers to the twins.
mhm.
Like, so
As long as you
like that
communicate
just
as an adult, like that's
like who knew communicating as an adult and not like making constant snide remarks as your only way to communicate would, fix things.
and I think both of it's also like getting rid of your ego.
Oh,
Like
100%.
Mistress doesn't have ego, I feel. Like like
She
she's
she has ego. She doesn't have um uh, there's nothing wrong with having ego.
no,
And I
yeah.
feel like to be a drag queen you kind of have to be. To be any sort of performer, you have to have a certain
But
level of ego.
she never has a toxic enough ego to where it gets in
Right.
the way of and clouds her judgment or clouds like I don't think she is I don't think she's so set in a mindset to where she can't hear somebody out. And I
Right.
think that's the difference. Like that's something that is really important to have.
Right.
And I mean just in life in general, not just in drag. So
But
that's why
life is drag, right?
sure, why not? But that's why I really enjoy her, like across the board. We get to Lux, and Lux is all always comes in this real stylish thing to the tic tac chit chat. That's not gonna be easy to say. But she talks about how she has basically planned out all of her looks, both on the runway and off, and
Yeah.
like you could tell she puts a lot of care into that. They talk about sort of her background and how she went to Cicely Tyson High School for performing arts or whatever.
Cicely Tyson.
RuPaul's like, there's a Cicely Tyson High School, but makes so much sense in terms of everything. And she kind of also talks about. I mean, this was interesting that she talked about sort of her background and her parents sort of instilling the confidence that we see in her. Because we also saw, I think it was last week, she talked about also though some of the homophobia she faced as well.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that she has the maturity to kind of take the good elements of what her parents may have instilled in her outside of this nebulous terrible aspect of their relationship
Yeah.
and sort of extract the good while still I thought that was a good lesson to take in certain ways not and I think it lends to her confidence and sort of not really giving a fuck at the end of the day.
100%.
It's I think really helpful. So that's really good to see. We go to the music video shoot. They're basically the whole vibe of the music video is they're on a spaceship. It's very that Janet
Very
Jackson.
Barbarella.
Yeah. Oh, I mean Barbara. Can we talk about how fucking good Sasha Colby looked in this blonde sort of
bombshell wig,
It-
Pamela Anderson.
it was fucking hot. It was really fucking hot. And she definitely killed it in terms of
And then
that.
the latex bodies, bitch.
Yeah.
Ugh.
She always looks so put together and great. But they basically have to start learning choreography, and Mistress is really struggling in sort of the picking up of everything. She's talking about how she's feeling trapped in her sort of jumpsuit thing with the the bigger shoulders, which did feel.
I mean, they are restrictive, but I also feel like that was probably a bit of an excuse.
I think it was Sasha that said basically it's an excuse, but it's literally just to buy her time so she can learn the choreo.
Yeah.
Which and I think I don't remember who the choreographer was that was with Michelle, but he was making the point of saying, like, it just needs to be about the attitude at the end of the day. Like, like if you don't hit every move, like it's one thing, but you can't, be at 50%. You have to
Right.
like, that's more what's important. But they basically have to immediately start filming after only learning the choreo for I probably like half an hour, but it felt like 2 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I don't understand this of like, this wouldn't happen on an actual set. Like, to me, like I feel like you in the
It might.
mm, so, depending, but I feel like in the larger scale of Drag Race, I feel like the point of the show in general is to prepare the queen that is going to represent the show to sort of go into the outside world and get jobs and get
Mhm.
music video gigs and acting gigs, etc. So I feel like it just didn't make a lot of sense.
The one music video that I've worked on was literally a 1-day shoot.
But at least a day, like,
Well, sure, but like you also got to figure they're going to start shooting as much as they can as soon as they can because they still have to get Rue in there and
right.
do all her stuff. So I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to for that to be normal.
Yeah. 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 It's just, yeah. I feel like it feels in the reality TV realm of just like let's throw the biggest possible curveball to just like, I feel like we talked about it, like if you when it should be the fact of like you give them the tools for the best possible end product, whether it's
Mhm.
the rusical, whether it's any of those like sort of aspects, and then let their talents shine at the end of the day. But I mean, what can you do?
I mean, they're drag queens. The drama's going to happen.
Yeah,
They don't have to produce it.
that's yeah. And also Anitra's kind of struggling a little bit. She seemed fine in the beginning, and then kind of when it got to the actual like filming portion with her and Lux, it was kind of a bit of a struggle. I also love Lux losing her white nail and not be and struggling to find it because all the set is white and like
It turns out it wasn't even on the set. It was in her.
yeah, it was a fun little moment. Um, yeah, Lux did really well. She she says that, I think I ate every aspect. I'm so full right now. Which I mean, like she nailed, like
No pun intended.
yeah.
She white nailed it.
There's a professionalism to her that I think comes through, which I think is really appealing. And Anitra is like admiring Sasha from the back of the stage or whatever as Sasha's performing. It's like Sasha's just so hot right now.
She's like, "Am I a lesbian?" It was the best moment.
Yeah. So that they film the music video and we go back into the workroom the next day, and it's the last day in the workroom, and the last day on set essentially. The girls are kind of talking about sort of their experience on this. This was a lot. It got worse in Untucked, but I was telling you about it. Like this felt a lot like it got a little repetitive, of just like this is the last day, and like I can't believe it's been this long, and like we've come so far, and we're right at the finish. It was like all the cliche like
Yeah.
phrases.
Well, and it was like they did that same thing and then they did one iteration of that, had a discussion, and then did another iteration of that and had a separate discussion.
Yeah,
And had it like 4 times in a row, and it was just like, come on.
yeah. It was a little too much, and I feel like at a certain point, if you're like the producer in the confessional or something like that, you got to give them different prompts. You got to give them like some other question to like, if you're not,
Reminisce on the season, like
yeah.
something.
And the girls are talking, and they're kind of they talked about how like it was refreshing that Sasha wasn't really a bitch. That like going into the season and seeing Sasha Colby in the workroom, they were like, oh, this is a veteran from like the pageant scene who like if like you kind of have an expectation sometimes maybe if you're a younger queen that you can that it's gonna be almost a wall, and that Sasha didn't
Yeah.
show that, which is good. And Sasha, I think she talked about in her confessional about how like at a certain point, even after I won Continental and everything like that, I had to move to Los Angeles, and like nobody like it's not like, hey, I'm Sasha Colby and I immediately am the top dog. I have to start from scratch when I
Yeah.
go to a new area. So you have to be humble, and like not think you're better than, the situation you're in or the place you're in. And I think that's a real, that's why I'm like, Sasha is like I think one of the best representations of the community, and like
Yeah.
going back to our conversation, I think could host and be the face of the show. You know, here's hoping. They talk about all the different gates that they had in terms of fights on the
Oh,
show.
jeez.
With like the metal gate and the like, just a lot, and they come to the conclusion that technically Lux
40-inch gate.
there we go, and that technically Lux was involved in all of them. So
Wow.
Lux deems herself the gatekeeper. Which, like, Lux is like, I mean, I don't think I started anything. I think I just stood up for myself in whatever moment. So, which I agree.
Yeah.
Then we hit the runway, final time for the girls on the main stage. And then we get the category is drag excellence, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. It's the best. It's your finale gown. It's essentially the
Which
same every season.
I get frustrated because they always have this category, and it's always drag excellence or like drag eleganza extravaganza or something.
Yeah.
And then they always undercut that with this should be your signature drag.
Right.
Those are different things.
Well, there was that one, was it season 10 where they were given like signature drag, and it was or they were given like your best drag, or they were given signature drag, but they changed it at the end to your best drag, and it was like
Those are completely different categories.
two very different things. Like,
and it's just like it's very frustrating because you wouldn't like Katya, for example. Glamour is not her signature.
yeah.
Her signature is thrift store finds.
Yeah.
Elevated, but thrift store finds. And like she does amazing work with those things, but it's still like bonkers. Like, what mushrooms were you on when you put this look together?
Yeah.
Type of look. So that's never going to fit in an eleganza category. Yet they constantly conflate those two on this show
Right.
as signature drag and glamazonian whatever. And it's just like, this is not, it's not the same. So don't piss on my foot and tell me it's raining, like,
no, yeah.
stop it.
Yeah, I agree. Going through some of the looks, I thought Anitra looked amazing. I agreed with on Fashion Photo Review that like the queens have overdone it with this like sculpted head where they bedazzle like the ends of the hair, but in this look it worked. Like it made sense with the look.
Yeah.
I love the just the shapes and the way it moved, especially like the stoning on the hips and stuff like that. Like, I thought it was the best Anitra's looked all season.
100%.
And because Anitra sometimes can go a little safer with the looks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she made the point to go all out here. And
Yeah.
that was good to see. Lux looked exactly like Diana Ross. Like,
100%. And she said later on Twitter, I think, that she treated and we've seen this before, like with Naomi, and Naomi Smalls, also huge on fashion, right? Their final look was a wedding gown because that's what you do in a fashion show. Your final look going down the runway is bridal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to capstone her drag race experience with a bridal gown, which totally makes sense for her because, like she said during the tic tac whatever that was called, she said during that every look was meant to be a fashion moment, and it was. Like, you cannot say that she did not eat every moment that she was in front of the camera.
Yeah,
and so capping it off with a bridal look just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so Sasha's I thought was really good as well. She made the point to sort of make it sort of inspired around the look of an orchid, and with the sort of I guess it was vines or whatever. That's the like.
Well, it was meant to so orchids are usually seen as a more how do we say this on a podcast? Fuck it. It's supposed to look like a vagina.
Okay.
Yeah, so she like the whole curves and things like that were giving very much that vulva type of shape.
She was giving vulva.
She was serving pussy, honey. Um, and it was absolutely gorgeous and absolutely like encapsulated her beauty. The only thing, and I know I talked to you about this before, the only thing that frustrated me was the rings. She was trying to go for like a whole Jetson, Judy Jetson, like futuristic, but like make it retro
Right.
kind of vibe, which totally 100% love that, right? But I don't think it got there. I think you needed more of those rings, more of that echoing of the Barbarella, of the Jetsons.
I also found it weird she had 3 on one and 4 on the other. Like,
oh, did she really?
It was like, I was like, that's not even. Like, that's my brain, like, sort of like.
It might have been a symbolism with the number 7. I don't know. She just didn't explain it in the VO. Or maybe she did and it got cut, but.
Yeah, if it connected more, if there was some more of a connection to the actual dress, like, I think it would have, like, been better.
It just looked like it was part of a different outfit made from the same fabric.
Yeah. And I also kind of, I didn't like the sort of, like, exposed corset in the back. Not corset, but like you could see the
well, I mean it is corseting, but
the back
not,
typically the back of a corset thing where you yank it essentially.
Yeah.
Like it was exposed in the back.
Yeah.
And like I thought it would have been nicer to sort of have like a more cleaner like.
Yeah.
But I mean Sasha never looks terrible. Like
no,
it's
absolutely not.
And Mistress, I thought this was the best Mistress looked all season. And I love this like
I thought that this color on her washed her out a little bit. I wish it had been a little bit of a darker tan.
Maybe. I could get with that. I really like the bottom half of like how the beading, like the way the beading moved that kind of like affected the pattern underneath this like cheetah print, like sort of like it flowed really well to create and was very like eye catching in that regard. And you were saying about her tits. You have sometimes.
So this is a problem that I face as well, and the reason that I have not bought a titty bib, because they are made for smaller frame people,
right?
So when you have a broader chest, it looks like your tits start halfway to the middle of your and half of your chest doesn't have any boobage on it.
Yeah,
and this was an issue also. You can see it with Boa from Canada's Drag Race had the same issue. I don't like it. It completely takes me out of the illusion.
Yeah.
Because if she was someone who had that amount of breast tissue naturally, it would not look like that. It would be spaced further apart.
Right.
So that's my only issue, and it takes me out of it with Mistress because like me, she's got a broader chest, she's got a larger chest cavity. So you've got to find different ways to create that cleavage. And because she's wearing the bib, she was wearing a really high neck, which when you got a fuller neck and you have more of chin presence, right? I also have this issue. You can't crowd that area because it makes everything look bigger. You have to, it doesn't quite fit there. You have to pull that back down. And if you need to hide that seam with jewelry or something, you can do that. But and Raja on Fashion Photo Review brought this up as well, is it crowds everything, it makes everything look tighter, and it's not flattering.
Yeah.
Overall, I still thought it was a gorgeous look. I wish the tone of the dress was a little bit darker. I wish overall for the whole season she had a better breastplate, and I don't like when larger queens have that up in your neck. Like I'm literally choking myself because it's what it it looks like. It makes me feel claustrophobic just seeing it.
Sure. We go to the music video. Overall, so thoughts overall in the music video. I thought Lux had the best verse. I thought she was really smart in mixing singing and rapping, and like she was the only one that sort of really did something.
I'm gonna show you. No, not that one.
A little better.
A little better than hers.
No, but in all honesty, like I think like she was the only one of the four to kind of like do something a little different with the verse and not sticking to sort of one tone and like give levels, which I really liked.
Speaking of that song, Mistress on the green screen background.
Oh yeah.
I saw Detox tweet the picture of her on that with the D to the E to the O, or D to the E to the T to the O to the hold up X with the picture of her on the, it was great.
Yeah, they basically are like sort of floating in like zero gravity or whatever, and everyone's just like being sexy. And
what was the other music video that they did that on?
Oh God, I think
I want to say All Stars 3. No, because that was a live shoot. That was a one take. There was another one.
Yeah,
that it was a problem.
But like it was a good comedic moment in the music video of having all these like, sort of like really sexy, sort of like sultry vibes, and then Mistress just full on like
starfishing. It was so good.
And I think we talked about Sasha's look in sort of like the group choreo with that blonde bombshell, but also the alien look she had in her like rap portion was
so good.
Really stunning. They basically start to then critique everyone. I can't even remember what specifically he said, but I just wrote in my notes that Ross was really annoying me during this.
It's another episode of Drag Race.
I think my frustration I figured out was that, and this episode I think was the key to it, which was like, no, not all of you can be the sort of like motivational, like, you know, like you're fucking Ayana Van Zant, like sort of like Michelle, and Rue all wanted to be that person, and I wanted a Carson there to just sort of critique the drag and critique the, like, you know what I mean?
Where's Alyssa Edwards with her roast of Santino?
Yeah.
Ross Matthews, shut the fuck up with your no drag knowledge having ass.
Yeah, it was just like it was, you know, I didn't know why Carson wasn't there. Like I much prefer Carson over
Had
Ross.
to have been a conflict of scheduling.
Something. But then they do the whole talk to your younger self photo vibe, which was fine. Nothing stood out personally. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
your really sentimental, like, you know, story about your childhood didn't stand out to me. Sorry. I know that's harsh.
But it's the same. It's mostly the same story that everyone has, right?
Yeah.
Of stick with it. You're gonna know you're different. You know, lean into that. Embrace who you are. It's the same thing. It's the same thing every season. And while it is touching and it's probably a good breakthrough moment for the queens, it's not necessarily a riveting moment for entertainment.
It's not particularly groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the journey that all queer people face.
Yeah, and it's important for people to hear it, but just like we've heard it. Like, yeah. I think it's just like there was a great TikTok that was going around of someone being like, "Do you want to hear about this really terrible thing that's happening right now in the United States of America?" And people just stitching it, going, "No,
no, we're done."
Like, I think
there's been 74 other ones today, so I'll take a break on number 75. We're good.
Like, as gay people watching this show, it's like, we know. Yeah. We get it. Like, it's, you know, and that sounds harsh, but then they sort of like do their final like sort of discussion among the judges, and you were hinting at this before, that Rue basically says here that, you know, going into this season, I promised to have an elimination every episode this season.
So fucking mad.
It's our fault. We did this to RuPaul. We were so like, how dare you like do 5 episodes last
or
season.
maybe don't have a shitty, gimmick the whole season where it's chocolate.
But even without the chocolate wasn't. It was the chocolate plus 3 other things that were keeping people
right, and it was exhausting. And then there were literally 3 opportunities this season to do a double save. I'm not saying you had to do all of them.
No,
But there were 3 lip syncs that rose to that level this season, and you chose to ignore all of them and then do a double save on this episode when I thought wasn't necessarily deserving of it.
Well, the reason why it wasn't, let's be real, it wasn't a double save in the moment. They always knew they were going to do a Final Four. They always knew it. It's like this dangling of the twist to sort of make it seem like, because why else would you watch this episode knowing that everyone's going to be in the Final Four? They brought that Final 3 thing out there so you would see maybe someone will go home this episode when they don't.
Right.
That's what it was, which is annoying as a viewer. I literally predicted it last week on this podcast that this was what was going to happen. So the fact that I was able to do that,
well, and it means that they never had to come up with another way to do the finale because they knew they were always going to do a Final Four. So it's not like they had to come up with a Final 3 scenario.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's annoying as a viewer. And this is where we get back into the same conversation of Drag Race is overproduced. And they just need to let these queens do their job and kick ass the entire season. If you want to make it a thing where there is no such thing as a double save, fine. Make that be a thing.
But it seemed like at the point, at a certain point with these seasons, it was okay, you're gonna get at least 1 double save a season. It got to that point. So
if you're gonna do that where there's no such thing as a double save, walk in on day 1 and go, there are no double saves this season.
Yeah.
Someone will go home every episode.
Well, that's my thing. If Rue's saying it here in this episode, why did they not say it to the queens in the beginning?
Right.
You should, and not just to the queens, but to the audience at the beginning.
Right.
That would have been, I think, at least better in terms of sort of expectation setting. And I don't know. That was frustrating to me. But Sasha wins the challenge. So this is her 4th win.
I think deservedly.
Yeah, and good on her. So she's at the top of the pack in terms of track record, quote unquote. And then Lux is also safe. And so in the bottom 2, we have Anitra and we have Mistress. And they lip sync to When Love Takes Over by David Guetta featuring Kelly Rowland. This was a good lip sync. Like you said, it wasn't a particular double save. I don't think no one, it was maybe in the sense that they were both pretty even. I don't think one ran away with it necessarily.
Yeah. And don't take that as we don't think that Mistress or Anitra, one of them, deserved to not be in the top 3. I think it could have been either way. I would have been sad to see either one of them go.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this was not, and it was mostly because of what they were having to lip sync in. Now, Anitra planned ahead and had a tearaway skirt, which, bitch, of course you did because you're the lip sync assassin of the season.
Yeah.
Or one of. But I would argue that Jax is also up there. Justice for Jax. And Selena actually was up there too. She had 4. So, it just, this was not it.
No.
This was not a double save, or it shouldn't have been.
It really should have just been I think they've done it a couple seasons in the past where it's you all lip sync. You all have to lip sync.
Or lip sync to win the fucking challenge. Have Sasha and Lux lip sync it out.
Sure.
Say we're doing a top 4. Now you 2 lip sync to, take the win for this challenge. Who gives a shit? Just put on a show. If that's what you're going to do, put on a show.
Right. I think this was a good episode overall, but I think they do these weird things with Drag Race where they don't deviate from they want to do this episode at the end of the day, but they also don't want it to be consequential and you know I think they should rethink it.
It's still better than what they used to do with the music video episode, which was, we're gonna shoot this music video, and then the one that we send home is getting cut from the final edit.
Oh yeah. I forgot they used to do that.
Yeah, that was shady as fuck.
Mm-hmm. So the finale has been filmed, I know. But we both are kind of in agreement. We've talked about this before. That it seems like it's Sasha.
It should be Sasha.
I would be shocked if it wasn't. I think if it's going to be anyone else,
I think if it's going to be anyone else, it's a toss-up between the three of them, and there are good arguments for all three of them to win this season. I don't think that any of them are better than the other, but I think the only one who rises above is Sasha.
Yeah,
that's
I
my
just think
opinion.
it's Sasha's time. I think it would be a mistake to go anywhere else in terms of this year, this moment. Like,
yeah,
I think any of the other three would do great in an All Stars.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think any of the four of them would do an amazing job as in their reign as winner.
Right.
And I think any one of them deserve it. I just think that Sasha deserves it more.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I agree completely. We'll be on the lookout for that. That'll be coming in a couple weeks. And then we get the reunion next week, so hopefully that'll be really juicy based off of everything that's been boiling over.
Oh, I'm popping popcorn for that shit.
It'll be fun. It'll be a fun time. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are talking the merge episode for Survivor 44. Don't go anywhere.
Well, hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm the Riz.
And, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct.
Yes.
And you know where we can find that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Mayhem.
That's right.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And if you're anything like us, you live your life out loud.
And when it comes to issues of discrimination, inequity, and outright bigotry, we use every platform we have to speak out against systems of oppression that perpetrate violence against marginalized groups.
That's why we are so proud to wear designs from the Survivors Know merch store. Their team has created designs that feature unapologetic, empowering, and survivor-centered messaging that range from mild,
like accountability is love and toxicity is not on the menu,
to a little more spicy.
Like one of my favorites, fuck your laws, fuck your system, transformative justice now, which has a cute little happy flower on it.
Each design is available on a variety of items from t-shirts and hoodies to bags, blankets, magnets, and even stickers. And as more items become available, the options will continue to grow.
100% of the proceeds go back into supporting the amazing work done at Survivors Know to support survivors, workers, and survivor advocates by organizing, challenging the status quo, and creating alternatives to the systems that fail us.
Support Survivors Know by shopping today at survivorsknow.threadless.com.
That's survivorsknow.threadless.com.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Welcome back to A Gay and His Enby. It is time to head over to Survivorland.
Survivorland for I know I said the merge episode, but it's the merge that's not really a merge they've been doing lately.
It is the merge-esque episode.
We're going to dip our toe into a merge.
It's the We'll get the j later.
Yeah. So we come, I kind of like and
They're
don't.
edging the merge.
I kind of like and don't like that they aren't immediately always coming back at night when they come back from tribal. Obviously, this episode was different because there was no tribal because Matthew went home last episode, medevac,
right.
Essentially. But Tika it's the next morning and Tika's sort of talking by the fire. And they're talking about I love the way they'll cut into these conversations about just random stuff this season about they're all talking about like accents and how Carolyn pronounces bag.
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 Yeah. It's like it was a fun little lighter Carolyn moment. And then Josh is sort of talking about how he's only been sort of a couple days with this tribe and he already wants off because it's so chaotic with Carolyn and Yam Yam and like I
Yeah.
get it. Like if you're someone who's more soft spoken and like sort of like not the biggest voice in the room, and then you have two people like Carolyn and Yam Yam, like
See, to me, that gives me the freedom to be soft spoken because sometimes I feel like when everyone else is soft spoken, I have to fill that space.
sure.
And it gives, for me, being around people like that gives me the freedom to just kind of lay back and not have so much pressure to perform.
Yeah, I can see that. But so they get the tree mail. Everyone basically gets the tree mail thing that it's time for the merge. They don't. Again, they don't explicitly say in the note that it's a merge, but that you're drop your buffs and you're all coming.
It's all
together.
merge adjacent language.
Yeah. And they're all going over to the Ratu tribe, essentially's camp. Carson's really excited about this and sort of getting everything together. They get this shot of Carson like excited about this, but he's over the fire like tending to it, and like you could see the flames in his glasses to where it's like this real like cinematic like sort of moment that's like
It's very gifable.
yeah, they were like, we're getting the Emmy with this one, folks. This will be in the reel. And so basically at this point, I thought it was interesting. So Carson's like, so we're merging. So I might as well tell everyone everything that I had my idol's now dead, essentially, because now that we're on the same beach together.
Why wouldn't you just keep that and use it as a fake idol?
I can't remember if he explicitly gave them all the details in the beginning. I don't think he did.
I don't remember.
Either way. But Lauren, too, on the Ratu tribe is just like, well, if we're sharing everything, I'll say that I have an extra vote. I was like, what are we doing, guys? Like,
Didn't she already say that?
maybe, but it was also, but clearly not to Carson.
Oh, right.
So, like, this, like,
right.
I guess they're in the sense they want to sort of solidify Ratu in the merge, but like, yeah. The boats end up arriving to the Ratu to the Ratu camp. Jamie is talking about how basically she feels like she's, in a really great position because she has the most info on everyone because she's been to Soka, she's been to Ratu, and that, if everyone doesn't see it, they're blind, which was kind of like what happened last episode of her being like, guys, ask me questions. Like, it feels like she's really wanting, like, she's trying to convince herself.
Well, to be fair, though, the only three people that she doesn't have, or the only two people that she doesn't have experience with in some way are Carolyn and Jam Jam.
Yeah.
Like, Josh, she has met with on that excursion.
Yes, yeah.
And Carson, she met with on that excursion. And the other two tribes are still pretty present. So, yeah, I get what she's talking about.
Yeah, and speaking of Carolyn and Yam Yam, Josh immediately to Franny is just like, do not trust them. Like, as soon as they meet up, like, he basically wants to get back with Soka and all that. And then Brandon and Josh are walking up the beach, and Brandon tells him what Carolyn said about at the sanctuary about everything Josh did on Tika, about the idol that he got from the excursion, and he claims to have a second idol, whatever. He tells Brandon he has the second idol, but he doesn't tell him that it's a fake.
Right.
Because he wants to sort of like see, what the vibe is, but then goes to tell Jamie essentially that it is fake, which I thought was odd. Like,
yeah.
And he's like, at the end, he's like, I gotta get, and I have to make sure I can get a place where all my stories can line up with everyone if it gets to that point. And it's like, well, the good way to do that is to tell the same story throughout. I didn't understand the point of like specifically like telling Jamie something different. And then Jamie immediately tells the Soka girls that what Josh said, but she's under the impression that he has a real idol, that it's not a fake idol. Yeah, and they're sitting around sort of discussing things, and like Josh basically they're like, well, what happened at Tika essentially, and Josh talks to them about Yam Yam and Sarah attempting to sort of get him out, and he just looks and goes, right, Yam Yam? Like, and Yam Yam is like thinking that, like, you know, I feel like I'm probably going to be on the outs of this, in the sense that, like, Josh is already setting the perspective of me.
Yeah.
And, like, you know,
Little does Josh know that nobody else wants him there either.
Well, there we go. So he basically thinks Yam Yam thinks he's on an island by himself, no pun intended. But then Matt from Soka tells Yam Yam, essentially the plan is to get Josh out. And it has been the plan to get Josh out since they were on Soka together. Like, we were basically like, we were going to get him out if it wasn't for this whole tribe swap bullshit. And so, and then we see now Carolyn again. I feel bad in the sense of, like, her again having these issues, like bonding with the group and feeling these, like, sort of moments of, like, oh, I don't fit in. But the way they edited this was like, it was like her serial killer origin story. Like, just like everyone just chatting indiscriminately, and then just cut to Carolyn just like eyeing them up, and just like with this like stern, like, it was a lot. I mean, Carolyn gives them a lot because, you know, with everything that Carolyn is, but like, they were doing a lot in the edit. And I also love her, like, in the middle of just everyone having these conversations, just being like, I mean, I like sweating. Is that weird? Is that weird for me to say? She is something else. And, like, but that's such a, like, yeah, Carolyn's quite something. But she is sort of bonding with Carson again, sort of from their time on Tika, and wants to work with him again. They sort of discuss at nighttime. They discuss wanting to basically reform what was left of Tika between Carson, Carolyn, and Yam Yam. And Carson basically wants to sort of do this very stealthily and play both sides, and sort of have, you know, as many people in his side as possible, and then have the bigger threats sort of fight each other and strike later. Which it seems like he's getting a pretty good edit. Like, in like, I hate that we as Survivor fans are, like, always looking for the edit of, like, like, I feel like Carolyn's getting a good edit. I feel like he's getting a good edit. Like,
yeah, it makes me worry for players like Heidi, Pittsburgh native Heidi, who is not getting a lot of screen time. It's like, okay, I guess we're not going to leave her around.
But also, I feel like we, like, a couple, like, of the last seasons, we had people who got, like, no screen time end up winning. So, like,
maybe,
you never know.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting to see. And also, so we go also, and Matt and Franny are sort of like bonding in the shelter, essentially, like, not literally, but close to, like, spooning in the shelter. And like,
they're so obvious.
It just feels like every time they're like, we got to distance ourselves from each other, but then they never end up doing it. And, like, you know, Matt's joking about, like, you know, if I win a food reward or whatever in the challenge, I probably shouldn't pick you. It's not personal or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, they need to sort of, like, figure that out.
It's like me saying, I really need to get up and fix myself something to eat. 5 hours later. Wow, I still haven't eaten today. 6 hours later.
But I also find it so odd that they still, like, even, well, spoiler alert, like, this episode, they avoid pretty much having their names thrown out.
Yeah.
In terms of the conversations. Like, there's such an obvious duo, yet it's not on the front of anybody's mind. We go to the sort of the weird half merge, not a merge immunity challenge, where, and they've been doing this for the last couple seasons. So essentially, you're not on tribes anymore, but you're doing a team challenge, and where you're in a random team. There's an orange team and a purple team, and if this team of 6 wins,
you get a new buff. You're in the merge. You get merge feast, and you get immunity.
And you get immunity from the next tribal council, but you still get to vote.
Right.
So basically, only 6 people of the 12 will be eligible.
It's like a 6-person individual immunity challenge.
Basically.
In that you still get to go to tribal. You're still part of that, but you don't have to have your name on the chopping block.
It just feels like a lot. It feels like a lot of twists that are, like, we won't spoil, but like next week they showed the preview for next week of just like the person who will go home, your vote, you will have no say in who goes home. It's like, what? Like, what are we doing? Like, it's
yeah.
it feels like a lot. But so on the orange team, they all draw rocks, and on the orange team you have Heidi, Danny, Lauren, Yam Yam, Josh, and Kane, and on the purple team you have Matt, Franny, Carson, Carolyn, Brandon, and Jamie. And this is another course where essentially you have to dig up this giant boulder from the sand, push it through this course to where you eventually get to this part where you grab a key, and then you have to go up this like sloped wall, like sort of like you're an American Ninja Warrior. And then on the top of it, you do a tree puzzle.
Right. Every time somebody says the word boulder, I think of Shrek.
Oh, God.
That's a nice boulder. I like that boulder.
But I think we were talking a couple weeks ago about like the possibility of them bringing back more dangerous challenges that they had done in past seasons. This was close with this boulder because Carolyn almost gets basically crushed at one point. And it's like, I don't want anyone to be hurt, but like a little element of danger never hurt nobody. Like,
I kind of want them to do like a temple run type thing.
oh my God.
Like with like obviously
like
everything
Indiana
is,
Jones.
Yeah, like an Indiana Jones type thing, and you have to like do all the puzzles and get through in like a certain amount of time, and like it like make it an individual challenge, but like everything's like airsoft or like
They have bumpers on it.
Nerf boulders or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that would be a lot of fun. Like you got to outrun a boulder, step on the right plates and figure out this puzzle to not get nerfed in the neck by this thing. Like I think that would be a lot of fun, and it would be a new challenge that we haven't seen in 44 seasons,
And we'll get to it because about them probably needing to sort of mix up the challenges. They are going through the course, and Purple kind of falls behind at one point because Jamie's really struggling to get up the wall. I think it was Danny on the other tribe was really smart on the wall of sort of like positioning himself in the net at the top to like sort of like guide everyone up. Because sometimes people have to be creative with it, of like almost creating like a wall or like a step ladder to like, get it done. Jamie eventually ends up doing it, but the orange team kind of takes the lead. But then Carson really makes up that lead when he gets to the puzzle, and seemingly does the puzzle in like a minute.
Yeah, it was real quick, and turns out that there's a reason for that.
He was essentially, and we see not just that he doesn't just tell us that he 3D printed this specific puzzle and practiced on it at home, but we literally see footage of him doing it at home.
Honestly, though, if anybody has the 3D prints of the puzzles from Survivor and wants to do me a favor,
well, that's
print them out, because I would love like little miniature versions of all the Survivor puzzles. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure production's really happy that he's talking about this, and really happy that this is like now an open.
But I also pointed out, because you had mentioned that when we were watching it, and I'm like, well, production didn't have to include that in the show.
That's a good point.
They didn't have to mention the fact that he had done that. They could have just left it alone. I think it's because they actually encourage people to practice, and because they did the same thing. Matthew had practiced the snake thing with the ball that he like kicked ass on. So
I think
he had built a replica of that in his backyard and practiced on it. So like it wouldn't surprise me if they put out those 3D models for people to 3D print and do. Like, I can understand if you want. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I think it's different when you're sort of and they don't explicitly do this, but when you're implicitly instructing people wanting to try out for the show, you have to try to make fire. Like, you have to try to use flint before coming on the show at the very least. Like, that is something that's like the basic levels of surviving at this camp. It's something that is like now at this point, as much as I don't like it, like a core part of like making it past Final Four. Like, that is one thing. I think it's much different to where you're doing these challenges over and over and over again to such a degree to where someone can just immediately copy them and do them.
Oh, you're right, but the way to change that is to change your challenges up.
Well, yes.
Like if they would, stop repeating them every season, then that wouldn't be an issue.
It also makes me hopeful of them. I told you, I think, about like the contract with Fiji may be coming up and like that they may have to go somewhere else.
Just leave these puzzles in Fiji.
Honestly, or like go someplace completely different than an island. And so it'll then allows you to sort of like
go back to like earlier seasons where they did, Africa, like just in the middle of the Sahara.
Yeah. Well, and also like I think going back to some of these like at least in the team portion, it seems like everything we joked about it on past episodes of like it's all an obstacle course that ends in a puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think like back in some of the seasons we've watched, not even like older seasons, but like around like in the mid 20s, 30s, like doing challenges like when you were in the ocean and you were boxing people off the platforms and stuff like that, or like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, where it's a little more skill based. Not to say that the others aren't, but like that you can't really plan for them. Like there's so many other factors that go into it. Or like, they were used to do like this, like they're like sort of their version of basketball essentially, which was kind of not like basketball, but sort of similar or different.
Well, they even did. Are you talking about the one that they did on Winners at War in the water?
Yeah, stuff like that. Like I feel like do more of those challenges to help in that regard.
Have unique challenges. Do that challenge.
But no, I think like that would sort of, in certain ways, even the playing field and create more of also a strategy in terms of like the team makeup and like, who is stronger in certain regards as opposed to others. Like, I think like that is, I think they need to go back to that more, especially if you have multiple players like we saw in this season prepare by like literally doing the puzzles from the challenges like that. I think
I will say that with them doing 2 seasons a year, it's hard for them to plan those ahead. And when they're trying to come up with new challenges, if they're coming up with new challenges, they plan them ahead, then they have to produce new challenges every year. So like they have to like actually make these sets as opposed to what they do now, which is just repaint them in the new tribe colors and be done.
Yeah.
And
it's very cost cutting.
It is cost cutting, but it also means that they can eliminate the ones that they know are extremely dangerous and leave others that are extremely dangerous for some reason. But eliminate the ones that they need to eliminate and then be done instead of constantly going, well, is this one going to kill somebody? Well, we're not sure.
Yeah.
Well, this one had 8 people fall out from heat stroke, so maybe not this one.
Right.
Like they don't have to do any of that anymore. They should still be doing some of that because as we've seen, 3 people have medical issues so far in this season, 2 of which having to be ejected from the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's an issue, like it needs to still be fine-tuned, but I think what they're trying to do is make the game as safe as possible while still staying entertaining and cutting cost, because you've got to figure they're putting out $1 million every year.
Right. No, I get it.
While also paying production and paying for, they don't also, and paying whatever rent on this island.
I also think like, yes, I think there are, again, like, I think there are certain challenges where by doing something a little more simpler, you are cutting costs. I mean, I'm not saying like by a huge margin, but like I'm sure like these like giant set pieces cost more than like just making a ring essentially to do like a boxing match on the ocean.
Yeah, but we've seen people get messed up with that challenge
Am I
too.
am I a masochist who just really wants?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
But I mean,
I'm learning about myself.
We're also wrestling fans, so it makes sense that we're like, yeah, no, it's fine.
No,
I mean,
dust it off. Rub some dirt in it.
Finn Balor just had his brain, his head cracked open in the middle of a ring on WrestleMania and like had to get staples ringside. It's fine.
Yeah. Move on. But Purple wins and makes the merge, and Jamie's crying sort of in relief of like she was worried she was going to cost it for the team essentially, and Carolyn's also crying. It's a lot of crying. But they make the merge and they go onto their merge feast as everyone else comes back to camp, and Yam Yam say, "I come back to camp with the 6 losers." So
to be fair, he came back to camp with 5 other losers.
Yeah. Well, he's including himself in the losers.
Yeah, but he's not with himself.
Sure.
Anyways,
they're talking in the ocean, and like he's sort of like trying to start getting feelers out and thinking about what do we think about like maybe getting Josh out. And Danny's like, I kind of think it would be better to wait for the other 6 to get back before we start, settling on anything. And Yam Yam is like, oh God, I said a name too early. Like, that's the worst thing you could do in this game because now everyone's probably going to target me.
but also that's really stupid to wait until everybody's back because the other people certainly aren't waiting until they get back to talk.
Well, yes, we get to that. And then, before we get to the feast, actually, Heidi and Lauren are also talking to Josh about getting Yam Yam out. Like, that Josh is like, we need to get Yam Yam out. I don't trust them. And Heidi and Lauren are kind of agreeing to his face, but they're also kind of, as he leaves, sort of worried in the back of their mind. Does Josh have an idol? Could this be,
right?
Is this the time to sort of take him out? We go then to the merge feast. Jamie is talking about in her confessional how excited she is, and she goes, she's going through the check boxes of everything that like the bucket list, and she ends by saying, "It's all happening," and I'm like, okay, Sheena. For anyone who watches follow our Vanderpump Rules recaps as well, I don't know why that stuck in my head. So like you mentioned, they're eating, but they're also sort of like immediately talking game and who should be the person they get out. And the name and Josh's name keeps coming out, but they're like, okay, but we also need a backup in case Josh has an idol that he plays, and they throw out Kane's name. Brandon particularly throws out Kane's name because of
so much for being Ratu strong, right?
Well, yeah, and Brandon says like, Kane voted has already written my name down, so.
I hate that.
But that was like 5 episodes ago. So it's
like number 1, it was 5 episodes ago. Number 2, like you got to write somebody's name down, and it's never gonna like not every tribal is going to be a unanimous vote. That's not the way that this works. Yeah. So like, why are you? I just don't understand. Like that to me seems silly.
Yeah. And then Carolyn basically tells them. Carolyn's essentially like, guys, you don't really have to worry about Josh's idol because it's a fake idol. Like Yam Yam pointed out that he took the beads from Tree Mail and it literally fell apart, etc. She's telling them all this,
and they just brush her off.
And they're like, well, I think we should just have Kane as the back. And Carolyn in her confessional is just like, I'm literally telling them all of the information of what like they need to know. And they're not even listening. She literally in the confessional just like, what the fuck? Like,
this is literally like Danny and Brandon part 2.
Yeah.
Like completely just ignoring her and being enamored with everybody else.
Is it because she's so eccentric? They're like, okay, crazy lady.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is.
I don't like.
She's going to sneak by all these motherfuckers and win this game. Honestly, and I'm here for it.
Honestly, like I think that's going to be.
It's going to be the gag.
I hope to God that would be the best result of this. They go back to there. I also know there was this like when they're cutting back to the main camp. They have this like slow-mo like rain footage of it looked like they were in like Avatar or something. Like it was really like I was like the budget. Jesus Christ! Like
they gotta spend the money that they saved from reusing all the challenges.
Yeah, there was a couple this episode. We
selling the CD print, the 3D prints of those puzzles.
Yeah, like there was a couple where I was just like, you guys are really trying for the Emmy. My God. So the winning tribe then comes back, and they have a moment where Lauren and Heidi are sort of by themselves, I guess, or whatever, in the campsite, and they tell them that like, okay, the plan is to get Josh out with Kane as the backup. Throw some votes on Kane in case Josh plays his idol. Franny goes to tell Josh that it's Kane to sort of like get him, in a good headspace about it. And then Josh decides that he wants to basically make up with Yam Yam, to protect him, going forward. And Yam Yam is just like, I want Josh out though. I want the gratification. Like,
same.
Yam Yam was this was kind of his episode in certain ways. Like he's done well-ish.
Yeah.
But this was really sort of him being on the forefront, I think, in a lot of things.
I really do think that Yam Yam and Carolyn will be fan favorites for this season.
For sure.
And I think Matthew too, because he's very relatable, and he's just, a lot of people seem to like him online as well.
Yeah. And this is the comical edit. Brandon is talking about how he's worried that that he's like, I want Kane to be the backup vote, but I'm worried that Kane is going to find out that his name is out there and he's going to freak out. Cut to Carson telling Kane that that he was like, I mean, Soka pitched you, but like, they're going with Josh at the end of the day. But again, Kane is like,
I mean, they literally could have cut to Kane huddled under a tree with the paper bag, and I would have been like, yeah, that tracks.
And then Kane immediately goes to Brandon and be like, hey, did my name get thrown out? And Brandon's like, fuck. Like, and now Kane then starts to rally votes for Yam Yam to get out. And that becomes sort of the thing. And Brandon immediately talking to Carson and being like, I think, dude, that was a bad move. Why did you do that? And Carson literally going, he literally couldn't finish the sentence. And I maintain that I feel like they're giving Carson a winner's edit, but it's not showing in anything he's doing.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like he's made a lot of mistakes, and it's sort of I feel like if you can bullshit enough in the confessionals, then you'll get a good enough edit to
Yeah, I mean that's literally what it is. It's the poor man's Cochran. Yeah.
And then Matt is kind of like, I don't have because Matt doesn't have his vote this tribal council because of.
How does he still not? Oh, because they haven't been to tribal.
Yeah, I can't even remember at this point.
It's like 20 years ago last time he was at tribal.
When we were watching the episode, Merlin was like, how has nobody on the internet who are Survivor fans made a guideline that updates who has what advantage and at this point, because there's so many, I can't even recap how many advantages there are. And real idols and fake idols, and it's too much.
I found one person that did an infographic, but it was for 3 weeks ago, and it was way out of date. So I was like, no, this is not good. Nobody on Reddit's doing it. I was like, really?
Yeah.
This is an active Reddit. Nobody is doing this. Okay.
Yeah. And Matt is, like I mentioned, trying to get votes, help Kane get the votes onto Yam Yam, because he's like, as long as it's not me when I don't have my vote, I don't really care. I need to stay under the radar.
Yeah.
This vote, which he does. They go to tribal council. Yam Yam is talking about sort of I think the topic comes up about him talking a lot, and him being someone who speaks a lot in his real life too, and it can get him in trouble, and he kind of just is sort of word vomit a lot of the time, which at certain points he's also just like, Jeff, do you want me to talk more? He doesn't know when to stop. He's
because Jeff just gives you this excited eye look, yeah,
just give me a sign, just tell me I can stop at any point. And I love it. Also, one point, Yam Yam's trying to convince him, I mean, can we reason with you to just go back and not do tribal, and we can vote 2 people out next time? It was a fun moment. It was kind of, like I said, this was kind of Yam Yam's episode. And then they go to vote. Also, Carolyn at the voting booth looking to her right and being like, whoa, I had one of these growing up. You've been to tribal how many times and you haven't noticed this?
She's such a queen. I love her.
I'm part of me in the head is is this real? This can't be fully real.
No, I think it is, and that's the magic.
I'm gonna keep the dream alive. But they end up voting, Josh or Jeff asked for anyone with an advantage or an idol. Josh reaches for his bag but doesn't play anything.
See, I feel like that was a producer edit. I don't feel like he actually reached for his bag, because why would he? I feel like maybe he was just adjusting his bag earlier in the tribal.
The only way I can think is to showcase to them that he might have, like, because it's kind of I'm sure he figures in his head it's an open secret that I've told people that I have an idol, even though it's a fake. So like I have to give it's
maybe he did it just to
because he can't play the idol,
right?
Because him playing the idol and Jeff saying that it's fake. Unless it's like
right. So it was basically if I do stay, then this keeps people believing that I do have the idol. And if I don't stay, then at least they'll be busy looking for my idol on the island.
Right. Yeah, sure. But I love that they can't even deduce at the end of the day of this that Carolyn is correct that it's a fake idol and like
keep dismissing her.
Yeah. But he doesn't play anything, obviously, because he doesn't have anything. And the votes break down where there's 1 vote for Kane, 3 for Yam Yam, and 7 for Josh. Josh ends up going home. Carolyn's kind of in shock by this, and we find out that Carolyn was the only Kane vote. So I'm assuming that Carolyn was going with the plan from the winners of like, you know, we're getting out Josh, but some votes need to go on Kane. So she was one of the Kane votes. So my guess is she's also probably really pissed that she was left out of everything. Like,
yeah,
I'm assuming because why else would you vote for Kane if other people were under the impression of elsewhere that it was going on, that stuff was going on Yam Yam. Maybe I get like maybe not telling her about putting votes on Yam Yam because
because they know that her and Yam Yam are close.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to help with her feelings of like feeling on the outs of this. And the only votes for Yam Yam were Brandon, Kane, and Josh. But Josh ends up going home. I mean, finally we got a man out.
Right.
Sorry. But like I feel
like but it's a gay black man.
I know, the fucking one that we can't have everything. I feel like Josh I was getting a sense that Josh was kind of getting a winner's edit at certain points, like in the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see him go home. But I mean, it makes me hopeful that like the people who I really am hoping for, like a Carolyn, like a Yam Yam, can go really far and make it further.
I'm convinced that they are going to take Carolyn to the end as a goat. And she's going to end up winning because she wasn't a goat all along.
Now that I think it, Carolyn's really the only woman getting a strong edit.
Yeah, we don't.
The closest other one is Franny.
And the only reason that we're getting an edit for her is because she's connected to Matt. We're not really getting much of anything for Jamie. I've not seen Heidi on the screen hardly at all.
At all.
Like Jamie or
Lauren either.
Jeff. Oh, Lauren's still there. Yeah. So like, yeah. And they
Carolyn
were giving
is the
her
only female getting an edit. It's
like Jeff mentioned Heidi at the tribal. He actually talked to her and asked her a question. And I was like, oh, that's right. Heidi's still here.
Yeah.
Like, it's so frustrating. Like, and we'll talk about it in the next episode, talking about Vanderpump. But like, fuck these men.
Fuck these men. That's our motto for 2023. But I don't even think the women that have gone home even got necessarily strong edits.
No.
Like, what are we doing, guys? CBS, fucking Les Moonves Productions or whatever the fuck. I know he's not there anymore, but
yeah, but still,
yeah.
His legacy lives on.
Yeah, but no, I mean, even still, this was a good episode. I hope this twist next episode is not ridiculous. And
it
crazy.
Will be, and you know it.
I know. But we got the people we're rooting for, and we're rooting for them till they get to the end. So still a pretty decent season.
All right, so once again, we've come to the time of the episode where we talk about our tops and bottoms of the week.
Oh my god.
It's an awful, awful accent.
Lisa Vanderpump in the room, apparently.
Yeah, it's British humor.
Yes, tops and bottoms. My top for this episode, I'm gonna give it to Sasha Colby. I think maybe a little preemptively, hopefully if she wins the season. But I thought overall this episode, it was like a very full circle moment for her. It's great to see her get her flowers in that sense, and like,
and she was even wearing flowers.
Perfect tie-in. And seeing her emotional side and her fun side and just the powerhouse side of her, it was really on full display across the episode. So I'll give it to her. My bottom for this episode, it's gonna go to everyone from the cast of Survivor to the production of just letting Carolyn down. Like Carolyn is getting so under appreciated. And maybe not in terms of the production, but like the Carolyn erasure by this cast at the very least is just so upsetting.
I mean, at least she's getting screen time. These other women aren't getting anything.
Yeah. So like Carolyn, I really credit. Like, we're rooting for you at the end of the day. Like we see what they are not seeing clearly. What about for you this episode, tops and bottoms?
So to echo your bottom, my top is Carolyn.
Yes, of course.
Because she is rocking it and she is continuing to show up and to play this game. And the fact that people are minimizing her value and her prowess, honestly, at this game. Honestly, I hope it bodes well for her because I like I said earlier, I think that she will somebody will take her to the end thinking she's a goat and she will end up being the goat.
Yeah.
AKA the greatest of all time. And she will end up winning this game and snatching that $1 million out from under their noses. And I'm here for it. I want to see everybody gagged at that final 3 tribal. And then them walk in there and vote for her like she deserves. So that's what I hope. My bottom for the week is Rue motherfucking Paul Charles.
Oh, how dare you?
No, here's the thing. How are you going to bypass 3 of the best lip syncs we have ever had on this show? Not saying the best 3, but 3 of the best, right? They're definitely in the top 10. I'd argue at least 1 or 2 of them is in the top 5 of all time. How are you going to bypass those and then do a double save this week? Absolutely the fuck not. Absolutely not. I mean, like I said, all 4 of these ladies deserve to be in the top 3, but that was not a double save lip sync. It simply wasn't. I honestly would have sent Mistress home, but I think it's splitting hairs. Like it could have been either of them. So I don't get it. I don't get why you don't see the problem wasn't keeping people. The problem was why you were keeping people.
Yeah.
Fix it.
The math ain't mathin'.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of A Gay and His Enby.
Join us next time for more of our recaps and hot takes. And be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you are listening. And check us out on our social media at A Gay and His Enby on all the platforms.
A special shout out to Shane Ivers, who wrote Pulsar, the song we use for our theme.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin,
and we're out.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.